Hi, everybody. This is Scott Clayson from TimeSolv, and we have Ron Reinert, who is one of our best account managers at TimeSolv, and he's going to walk you through today how exactly the TimeSolv application works and how you'll do time expense entries, create clients and matters, and you should get a good sense after the end of this demo on whether TimeSolv is going to be the right fit for your firm. So, with that being said, take it away, Ron.
Thank you. All right. Yes, today we are going to go over some of the basics in TimeSolv. We'll be starting off with how to create those time and expense entries, how to get those in the system. We'll also do an overview of clients and matters, how those are structured within inside of TimeSolv. Probably jump over to invoicing. I know that's important for everyone. So we will touch on that as well, along with payments, trusts, which I know is another topic. And then from there, go on to some of the other features within the system. So starting off with time entry. Now, when anyone logs into the system, they come right to this page. So that way they don't need to look around. They don't need to go anywhere else. They're exactly where they need to be. Over on the left-hand side is a calendar that will show all of the different time entries that you've entered for the month. Now, it does total it by individual day, by the week, which is the column over on the right-hand side, and then it also totals it by month, which is down below. So that way you always have that quick snapshot of exactly what you've entered for the month. Now, you will have access to all of your clients and matters in this particular field. And you'll be able to double click in here to view all of those, to be able to pick exactly the one that you need to find. Now, if you know the client name or part of the matter name, either one, you're able to fill in or start keying in that particular name, and TimeSolv will find that for you. Just as an example, I'm going to start typing something in here, and then TimeSolv is going to limit my search by the number of characters I'm putting in. So really, all I had to do was type in 3 letters, and I find the exact client that I'm looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. Task codes can be an optional field. For those of you that do need to do leads invoicing, you can also make this mandatory. And you can also include the second code, sometimes known as the activity code or those A codes. That way, everything that you need for those particular invoices can be included on the time entry screen, and it can be customized per matter. We're also able to track any billable, which is the default, non-billable, and no charge time. So that way, no matter what type of time you're recording in the system, very easy to keep track of that and to differentiate between those different entries. Our hours normally are put in at a tenth of an hour or every 6 minutes for our billing increment, though that can be modified. I know that tenth of an hour is very popular, as well as a quarter hour. Either one of those can be easily used, or any other increment you would like. I'm just going to put in some time just as an example. And we do see the rate. Now, every timekeeper or every staff person that is recording time in the system does have a default rate associated with them, but you can modify that based on the client or the matter that they're entering time for. So that way you can be very specific with any of those rate structures that you need. You're also able to enter in a fixed amount. So if you wanted to charge just a flat rate for whatever activity that is, you're able to do that right on the fly as you're creating this time entry. Descriptions are also very easy to enter in with the use of abbreviations. Now these are completely customizable. They You can have in as many as you would like. This is just a short example of some of them that I've put in this particular account. And then whenever they're used, you have to key in just that small phrase followed by the space bar. And these can be very small, like this particular one, or a little bit longer, as the next one I'll use. So that way you can customize this and be able to put in those time entries any way that you want. And that way, for those routine descriptions, you don't need to type those over and over every time they're needed.
I think it's important to
Uh,
note here, Ron, if I can jump in, that you can
yes.
create both account-wide abbreviations that your entire firm has access to, and you can also create your personal abbreviations for you as a timekeeper. So there's a bit of customization to it, beside toggling back and forth between your own and the ones that the entire firm use.
Yes. So that way, if the attorneys are in different areas of law and they're doing practicing or working on different cases, then their personal abbreviations are probably going to be quite different. But then the firm-wide abbreviations, everyone will have access to. Recording your entries, save and new or save and duplicate. Uh, Save and new will record this and then clear out all of these fields, gets it ready for the next time entry. Save and duplicate records your time, but then leaves these fields populated so that they can be used on the next similar time entry. So let's say I do want to work with this particular client, but I need to enter time for their other matter. That way I can enter that in very quickly and be able to save time and still record all of my information. Now, I can edit, copy, delete all of my time entries as much as I need up to the time that these are on an invoice. Now, expense entries are entered in much the same way. You still have that calendar off to the side that's going to show you all of your entries for the month. These are also put in to the specific matter and can have those expense codes, which are important for those leads files. Normally a quantity and a price per unit are entered in. You can also enter in a fixed amount for these as well. The description does have all of those abbreviations available here also, and save and new and save and duplicate work the exact same way. Now, one added feature here, you are able to upload a copy of the receipt of this expense for any non-leads invoices. That way, when you do send those invoices out to your clients, that receipt is automatically going to be attached to the end of the invoice. And if you do have multiple expenses on those invoices and they each have their own invoices or their own receipts, all of those will be labeled with the exact expense they belong to. So that way there's never any confusion. Now we're going to go ahead and take a look at our client and matter structure. So we are able to enter in that client just one time, and any of the matters or projects underneath that client that are entered in and they are shown indented on this list. Now you do have to have at least one matter for each one of your clients, but you can have as many matters as needed. They're very easy to enter in. You can go ahead and click on the link that says new client. All you really have to do is put in the client's name, and if it does have an ID of can have a numeric or alphanumeric ID, you can enter that here as well. Otherwise, just go ahead, let TimeSolv put in its default ID number. It'll just incrementally increase as time goes on. Go ahead and save your client, and then that will be in the system. The next step would be to go ahead and create a matter. And again, go ahead, click the link in the upper right, give find exactly which client it belongs to, give that matter a name. Again, if you do have a custom ID number, you can put that in here. Otherwise, let TimeSolv populate that for you. You are able to put in a responsible professional, not just someone who is in charge of this matter or the lead for this matter. And you can also then consolidate multiple matters underneath a particular client. Now, what that's for is billing purposes. So anything that's consolidated, those matters would appear on the same invoice. So you can have multiple matters appear on just one single invoice. So if your client only wants to receive one bill every month, go ahead, consolidate all those matters, and then he'll only get that one. By default, they are not consolidated, so each matter receives its own invoice every time you bill.
And I think, Ron, correct me if I'm wrong, but you can also kind of sort of pick and choose which ones you want consolidated. If you're working on 5 matters for a particular client and 3 of the matters need to be on one invoice, but the other 2 need to be sent separately to maybe other members of that company you might be working as a client, you can do that as well, correct?
Yes, it is not just an all or nothing feature. You're able to go ahead and pick and choose. So, as an example, the very top client that I have, it has 5 matters on it. I could consolidate, you know, 3 or 4 of them, or even maybe just 2 of them, and leave the rest to be individual invoices. So the choice is always yours. Some of the features within our clients and matters is the ability to name your client something in your list, something that you're familiar with, but then you can change the name for billing purposes. So that way, if you do work with any clients that are doing business as, or if you know them as a certain name, but they want to be billed out as maybe their full name or given name, that way you can change that to make sure, again, those invoices are exactly the way that you need them to be. Another feature too is the different rates. And we did mention that a little bit during time entry. These will start off as all timekeeper default, which means it does refer to that rate on each individual timekeeper's profile. Now, if it does need to be different, we do have the next option is what we call a global rate. And those would be different rate structures that you can enter in. They're completely customizable. You can have as many as you would like, and then they can be assigned to certain clients or matters. And then these can be used in a number of different ways. Uh, like this one shows, maybe I updated my rates this year or last year, I should say. Everybody is billed out at the same hourly rate. Maybe I give a discount to certain clients. This would be an example of one of my clients that has very unique rates. So, but every matter for that client has the same rates. So that way, these can be used in many different ways, whatever is easiest for your firm. Now, another way that you can customize the rates is by individual matter. So that way, on the matter itself, you're able to enter in specific rates that would only be in effect for that one single matter. So if anything unique does come up, we can accommodate that as well. If we do need to take it one step further, you can put individual rates on task codes for individuals for certain matters. So we can be quite detailed with those rate structures if that's what's needed.
Ron, I think that's really
Uh,
one of the strengths of that TimeSolve has is the depth of our and flexibility of applying whatever rate you want to, and as granular as you need it to be, can be
right.
done, within TimeSolve. So even if, to get even deeper, even if you have a specific task code rate, you could even modify it between, timekeepers. So one timekeeper charges a certain amount for the same task that somebody else charges a different rate for that same task. It's really impressive how much granularity there is in the rate structure you can apply.
Right. And because that can be then specific to the matter, you can have one timekeeper charges a certain rate on that task for your first matter, but then that same timekeeper, same task, but will have a different rate on the second matter.
Right, right.
So
Yeah,
it can, it's almost any combination you can think of between our default rates, global rates, matter rates, and then really those task-based rates. We can accommodate any situation that comes up. Another thing we can do is you can charge tax if you need on your clients. And that can be, typically it's not taxable, but you can charge tax on everything for that particular client, or then you can say by task. So that means, and I'm just going to turn this on to show the example. So that way you can say, I have a certain percentage for my time entries and maybe a different percentage for my expenses. And when I say taxable by task, then I can pick which task codes or which expense codes are taxable. So I don't need to have it just across the board, though I can do that if I want. But this way I can be, again, very granular and specific, exactly how I need to be. This is also a way for people to charge maybe not tax, but an administrative fee. because this is customizable. So it does not have to always say tax. So if you do charge an admin fee based on the amount of time, this can be used for that as well. Contacts are just the addresses for your clients and the matters underneath them. And you can have multiple contacts in here, though only one is used for billing purposes. You can have all their information recorded. Some of these are filled out a little bit more than the others. The ones that do have something listed in the matter name column are matter level contacts. The other ones that have this column blank are client level contacts. Now, the reason I make that distinction is because when you are creating invoices, the invoice itself is going to look to the matter first for contact information. If something is there, that's what's going to be used. Now, if there's nothing on that matter, then the invoice is going to move up to the client and use the contact information there. So this is good because if you do have a client with many different matters, but they all get billed to the same person, you only have to put that address in once at the client level, and then all the matters are going to use that address. Now, of course, if they do need to get billed out in different areas or to different people, then those specific addresses can be put on the matter level. Invoice settings, this is how you can start to customize those invoices for your individual clients. If you do charge interest, you can turn that on and off per client. An area for your annual interest rate. We do offer a grace period along with payment terms. So in this example, once that invoice goes out, does need to take 10 days to go by for the payment terms to start. And then after an additional 30 days, or in this example, 40 days in total, then if they haven't paid, interest starts accruing. You can enter any value for the grace period, and we do have a number of standard payment terms already in the system. You can have delivery methods for your invoices automatically set. So these will be used every time invoices are created for this client. Printer means that a PDF will be created of the final version of that invoice. Once that PDF is created, you can then send it to your printer, save it on your network, anything you'd like to do. Email means that a copy of that invoice is going to be automatically emailed out to your client. So once you finalize the invoice, then the system is going to take that invoice, save it as a PDF, attach it to an email, send it out with you CC'd on that email. So that way you have a record of everything that leaves the system and exactly when. You can also send this to multiple email recipients. You just have to put in those addresses and separate them by a comma. One thing about the format, you can choose something other than PDF if you wish. We do have a number of different formats, including a few leads versions as well. And the last option is that auto mail. That is used when your client would like a hard copy, but you'd like us to mail it out for you. So we're able to do that. It does go out right around 5 o'clock Central Time, and there's just a small fee to cover supplies and postage. Invoice narratives are ways to enter in a custom message or custom instructions in different areas on the invoice. And again, this would be specific to this client. You also have this ability on the individual matters. You also have it on the individual invoices. If you would like, you do also have it as a global level. So you can create messages that would show on every invoice for every client. Matters list is going to show you all the individual matters underneath this client, whether they're active or not. So this is a great place to look to see that full list. And then I do have all of those here I can see. If I do have responsible professionals listed, they'll be here as well. If they're active or not, if they're billable or not. And then there's that consolidated option. So if I did want to change that after they were originally set up, I can do that at any time. And I also have the option of creating new matters right from this screen. go ahead and actually just click on one of these. I'm going to go right into that matter details section. Uh, some of the features in here are very similar to what we saw on the client side, but some of the differences with that responsible professional that we could fill in right away. Uh, you can start to set up commission percentages. So if you do have a commission structure, you're able to differentiate that between the responsible professional. You can put in originating professional, and then of course on the individual timekeeper's profile, which would then be the working professional or the working attorney, they can have a percentage as well. So we do have a or reports that can generate that and calculate that all for you. Here's an example of the matter rate that we spoke of just a few minutes ago. If I go ahead and select this, it does show me all of my different professionals, what their default rate is, but then on the right hand side, I can put in any value that I want. So that way I can make this very specific uh, for any of my matters. If I ever do need to change those task code options, I can do that here as well. There are global settings, but this can be specific to each individual matter. Contacts, as we talked about. So I do have a contact listed here. So then this is what will be used instead of the contact at the client level. Invoice settings, very similar to what we saw at the client side. Uh, we also have a budget feature. So you can budget your matters and watch that and be able to monitor that, not only as a matter as a whole, but maybe specific to those professionals or the tasks that you assign. So there's many different budgeting options in here. Tasks are typically used when you do have a set list of activities that need to be performed for that particular matter. And this area is also used for our flat fee billing. And we do use that for the milestones. So those are used to create those fixed fee invoices anytime that you need. And if that is something of interest, we do have a few videos on that as well. Invoices will show you all of the accounts receivable side of things for your matter. It does give a full list of all of those invoices. They can be downloaded just by clicking on the invoice number. It also then shows all in a summary fashion the details of that invoice and if they've been paid or not. It also shows any work in progress that's yet to be billed, their outstanding amount, if there are any unallocated payments that have been submitted, and if they do have a trust or retainer balance. We do also have document storage for all of our matters. So there is a folder structure that's automatically created when you do add in more clients and matters. And then you have the ability to upload any number of files that you wish. Example here is just a PDF and a few Word docs, but you can upload any type of file that you would like.
What's nice about that too, if I can jump in, is you can do versioning as well, where you can see who's
Yes.
edited the documents that you have here. You can see which version you're on. You can add notes that tell you about the document. So it's a very healthy document management system that could fit the needs for a lot of firms.
hmm Yes, and included with the TimeSolv subscription. Now, if you already have something in place, we do link up with Dropbox and NetDocuments. So that way, if you already have your files in one of those, then we can synchronize with them and uh, have your files connected that way. Now we do have the ability to enter in trust accounts to monitor those types of funds on any of your matters if that is something that's needed. This just shows an example. You can have multiple accounts for each of your matters. So I do have a retainer and a trust account here listed. Now I do have the ability to put in any replenishment rules. So if they do need to keep a certain level in those accounts, TimeSolv can automatically monitor that for you. And on the next invoice, if they do dip below that required threshold, will automatically ask for additional funds so that they can replenish that total. We also have the ability to automatically allocate or transfer funds from trust to pay for those invoices. And again, reports that can monitor that and show you the totals, so that way you don't need to try and keep track of that on the side. That way you can run your bills, have those funds automatically transferred from the trust accounts in TimeSolv into operating to pay for those invoices, and then run the report, see how much those total up to be, and then you can go to the bank and actually transfer those funds from your IOLTA account into your operating. We also have notes not only on the matters but on the client level. So if you did need to write anything down or wanted to make note of something, this is like an electronic posted pad. It is all internal. None of this ever appears on an invoice. We do also offer split billing. So if you ever needed that, so if you needed to bill out multiple entities for the same work, or they need to share in that responsibility for paying for those time entries, then you're able to create that here. And so that way, not only can you split it between two different groups or two different clients, you can do it between any number of clients. And you can pick the percentages that everybody owes. So that way, whatever that agreement is, we can accommodate that.
Again, another big powerful feature I think of TimeSolv, the ability to not just split a bill like 50-50, but split it amongst multiple clients if that's the case, and really mix the percentages as well, so that it's, even if you have four people, it's not going to automatically assume that that should be split 25%, 25%, and so on. It could be one person's paying 50% of that bill and the other three are making up the rest of it. So you can really
Hmm.
make your split billing as customizable as needed.
Yes. The other thing too is you can either split the hours and the dollar amount associated with them. So it will just, we'll take that 50-50 split just as the example. It would just cut everything in half and then assign it to the appropriate clients. The other option is that it will split the hours, but then it will use the billing rules or those rates that you've set up on those individual clients to dictate how much should be billed. So that way you can log in the hours, and then if it needs to go to different clients and those clients have different billing rates, we can accommodate that as well. All right. Now, moving on over into invoices. And we do start with drafts. I know some places do call those pre-bills. It's very similar. So I'm going to go ahead and click on new draft invoices to initiate this. I do see a list of all of my different clients. I can pick and choose if I want. I can be more specific and pick those individual matters. And again, I can be very specific if I want to be. I can even go ahead and pick it by responsible professional. So if you do have one of your attorneys comes up and asks for any of their bills, then you're able to just produce theirs. So that way it does make this very easy and intuitive. I'm going to go ahead and leave this as all, just so I can create as many as possible. You can modify the date range. We do leave the beginning date open so that all unbilled time is included. That way nothing ever gets missed. Again, normally billing out time and expense entries, but if you need to bill just one or the other, you can do that. If you do have any split bills, then this is where you can initiate it. So even though you have entered time on a matter that you have originally designated that is going to be split, you still have the choice if it's going to be split or not.
And I think vice versa, you can also, if there's a matter for a client that you've already done time entries for, and later on you have learned that you have to split that bill with another client, even if those time entries already exist, you can still set up the split billing and make it happen in this area.
Mhm.
So you can sort of retroactively apply time entries to be split if needed.
Yes, indeed. Um, Now this shows a list of all of those invoices that have been created. So it does tell me exactly the client and the matter that are being billed out and the dollar amount. And here are those delivery methods again. So if I didn't designate anything, I can go ahead and so I do have that option. So I do have a number of different drafts. Looks like I have 30 in total for a fair amount this time. And I can go ahead and review these in a number of different ways. I can select them off to the side, maybe as many as I want, or even all of them, and click on download. And that will create a PDF of each of those invoices, just one right after another. And that way I can review them all at once. I can also just view them on screen by using the magnifying glass, or I can download them individually. If I do download individually, I do have the option of many different formats, not just PDF. And again, Leads does appear in here also. So if you ever needed to know a preview of what those look like, it's very easy to do so. And to make any edits to these invoices, all you have to do is click on the dollar amounts, takes you right into the draft invoice screen, and you can modify anything on the invoices that you would like. Once these have been reviewed and modified and they're ready to go, again, select them off to the left, make sure at least one of the delivery methods is selected, and then go ahead and click on send. And then these will be finalized and changed from a draft to a final invoice. All of those are then kept at the sent invoice screen. And now, if you ever do need to make edits to this particular screen, then, or any of these particular invoices, maybe the client has called you up, all you have to do is go ahead and select one of the invoices and say void to draft. And then that is going to move this invoice from final into a draft status once more. And the nice thing is you can do that not only to the most recent invoice for your client, but any invoices for that client. So that way, if they are procrastinating on that phone call and they do then finally ask about an invoice that's been, 4 months ago, you can take that one specific invoice, void it back to draft, make the edits, resend it, and not have
And
to
more
touch
importantly, too,
any
you
of the
don't even
more
have to go
recent
back. Say
invoices.
if you have to modify a time entry from 4 months ago or whatever it might be that's on that invoice, you don't have to go back into the time entry screen, try to find that time entry from 4 months ago and do the modification there. You can do it right at the draft invoice level where you can do all sorts of edits to your invoices before you send them out.
Yes. Hmm? Yes, indeed. Now we can also track payments and trust account payments in here. We'll just go over a little bit of that in here as well. All you have to do is enter in the date, the client and matter therefore. Payment normally means money coming in, but you can also designate credit memos or write-offs if that's what's needed. Uh, the most common payment method still is check, but if they do give you money in a different fashion, you can note it here. Reference number is optional, typically like their check number or maybe confirmation number on a wire transfer, something like that. The dollar amount, and then any internal notes that you would like. Once you save that, it will be recorded as an available credit to that client, and then you're able to allocate that to any open invoices. So you do have full control over how those funds are allocated for that particular client. Now, the same can be said for trust payments. So you do enter those in, again, specific client and matter. Um, Now, the trusts are a little bit different because you do have a specific trust account. And as we saw on the matter setup, you can have multiple accounts per matter. So that is designated. If you haven't set it up yet, it can be set up here during the uh, time that you're adding in that initial payment. Deposits are money coming in. Disbursements are defined as any time that you're taking money out of their trust account for something other than paying for an invoice. Maybe the case is over, there's funds left, you need to return it to the client. Maybe there was a fee that needs to be paid directly out of trust or a third party that needs to be compensated the same way, then those transactions can also be recorded. Uh, then again, the notes and reference numbers are optional, putting in the dollar amount and saving that. And then as we see here, it is an example of the allocation option for any of the funds. And then you're able to select specific invoices
And
and
of
how
course, this
much
would be if
should
you
be
did not set
allocated
it up
to
ahead of
each of
time to
those
auto
invoices.
pay an invoice from a trust account. This is where if you still want to do it kind of manually,
Correct.
deduct from the
Yes.
trust to allocate an invoice
Hmm.
or pay an invoice.
Yes. Hmm. That is correct. Now, if you ever do have any balances, either trust or payment, and they do not have this allocate link, that is a very quick way to know there are no outstanding invoices. Those are the clients that we always like because they do pay their invoices on time. Uh, Now, we do have a number of different reports. They do span the full area of TimeSolv, so they can answer all of those different questions. The nice thing is these can be modified. They do have certain filters and triggers on all of these different reports. So that way each one can answer multiple questions depending on how they're set. And they can also be outputted into nearly a dozen different formats. PDF is the default, Excel, text, HTML, CSV, really anything that you would like. Account is really the administrative side of things. And this is where you would add in more staff, about your account, so your firm's address along with your TimeSolv account details, how you can import and export information. So you do have the ability to export your data anytime you would like. This is also where you can get the tools to link with QuickBooks, either desktop or online. And settings are more of the uh, settings for your firm. So your EIN number, if you ever need to change your firm name, we do have a lockout duration. So if somebody logs into TimeSolv and doesn't do anything for say 30 minutes, it'll automatically log them out again for security
Speaking of
purposes.
security purposes, if I can interrupt, Ron, one of the another
One of
great
the other
feature I
things,
know a lot of firms love about TimeSolv is the
yes,
permissions level that you're able to set for other timekeepers. This is especially important if you have contract attorneys that don't they're not full-time members of your firm, but they do contract work periodically, and you don't want them to see much else that's going on in the system other than the matter that you've assigned to them. And you can lock down the TimeSolv where really the only thing they're going to see when they log in is the time entry screen and an expense entry screen, and they're only going to see the matters that have been assigned to them. You can get very, very detailed in how little or how much you want your timekeepers to see when they're in the system.
yes, yeah, that permissions can get very granular, and it is by individual, so it can be as specific as you need it to be. One thing we didn't talk about that I do want to go back to is our dashboard. And this is for goal setting and tracking purposes. You can set individual goals for all of your staff. This is an example of I want to, well, I have a goal for 1,600 hours this year. It does break it out by month. So if this was a real world scenario, I'm not doing so good. So I really need to learn how to bill more time. But it is nice. It does break it out by individual month. So we do have reports for all of this as well, but this is a great place to come for that quick snapshot. They can really see, how am I doing? How was last month, month before, you know, as the year rolls on, then they're going to be able to see how they're comparing to their goal. Are they meeting that? Are they below? Maybe they're exceeding it. Um, so that way, all of that information is in here. So that way, again, it's a very handy tool, very quick, very easy. So that way, you can keep track of everything that's going on. And as administrators, you would then have access to everyone's graph. So that way you can see how everyone is doing right from one screen. We do have then, we talked about real briefly about those documents and how we would sync those with Dropbox or NetDocs. The other thing we do have in here is document automation. So that way you are able to use any of these fields to create custom documents, and then you would be able to run those for any of your clients or matters. So that way, if you're sending out uh, welcome letters, change letters, any type of documentation where you do need, it's the same thing to multiple clients, but really the bulk of that document is identical, then create a template and be able to run that on any of your matters. I just have one example in here right now, but you could have really as many as you would like. Another time saving feature. Now, the one thing I'm going to just kind of end where we began everything is we do also have two different ways that you can record time. Not only logging in through the web portal, but you do have the ability to download a mobile app on your iPhone or Android phone, and that way you can track time right from your phone. We also have a desktop widget called TimeSync, and once that's installed on the desktop of your computer or laptop, you can record time and expenses anywhere you are, even when you're offline. So that way you can really keep track of any of your time anywhere you are, no matter what you're using. We are compatible with PCs and Macs. And again, like I said, Android or iPhones. So no matter what device you have, wherever you are, if you're connected or not, you're always able to keep track of your time. Uh, that is the end of the introduction to TimeSolv. So if you do have any further questions, please don't hesitate to contact us. We do have our 800 number along with our support email listed on our support
Great.
page under the
Great, Ron.
resources.
Thanks.
Would be
Tell you
happy
what,
to
why
hear
don't you
from
bring
you.
up on screen
Thank you very
how,
much.
if you're interested in TimeSolv, we do offer a 30-day free trial to our product. No credit card needed. You'll be assigned an account manager. And so if you just go to timesolv.com, you'll see both there and then anywhere else on the website up in the upper right hand corner there, that big orange button that says free trial. It's hard to miss. Just click on that, and we just ask you for your name and your email to get started. And then you can open up that 30-day trial, and a great account manager like Ron or some of our others will be assigned to you. They'll help you get set up, answer any specific questions that you might have, some unique circumstances with your firm, talk more about the process we use to convert firms from an old billing system to moving to TimeSolv. Every system's a little different in how we do that, so it's worth having that one-on-one session with our account managers, and we'll help guide you through that process. The goal of TimeSolv is to help make this mundane stuff that no lawyer or law firm loves to do, which is keeping track of time and doing the billing and invoicing, take a lot of that burden off of you. We'll be an extension of your business when you come and try TimeSolv. So, Ron, thanks for walking everybody through the product, and we look forward to hopefully working with a lot of you in the future. Thanks, everyone. Have a
My
great day.
pleasure.